This video is compare fractions with related denominators. This can be found within the fractions topic of Essential Assessment, which is the first skill readily available. The learning goal for this skill is to compare different fractions with related denominators rather, and the success criteria is to find similar fractions, to simplify fractions, to provide time in the form of a fraction, and to also be able to arrange fractions in quantity size, either from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. I've taken 4 different examples from the Essential Assessment skill. In order for you to know how to approach this, it's highly recommended that you have your scientific calculator readily available, as we'll be using certain buttons from here, specifically this button here, which is your fraction button. Also, we'll be using the shift and that button. The shift button makes you have the ability to be able to put in a mixed numeral, which we'll get to in later stages. We also want to make sure that we are familiar with this button here, the S to D button, S just standing for standard and D for decimal. Let's have a look at the first example here. In this question, it's saying what is an equivalent fraction for this fraction given. In other words, if you haven't seen my introduction video, I highly recommend that you watch this. We looked into the notion of what fractions are and how they work. This right here, this 3/6, this can be written in another format. All right, so if we were to picture some quantity that has been split up into 6 parts, so we know that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, obviously not to scale. And from this, we care about 3 of them. So 3 is the number of inches within those parts. This is saying that, hey, there is another way that we can rewrite this, either 1/2, 1/3, 2/3, or 1/4. The best way to be able to approach this question is to put the fraction in 3/6 into your calculator, and it will either spit out the fraction form or the decimal form like this. If it spits out the decimal form, you would just go ahead and press the SD button to get the fraction form again. And this is saying that 3/6 is the same as half, because if you look at this, this is actually half of that rectangle colored in, if you look at it as a whole. And can we see half here within the answer? Yes, we can, and we've got an answer right here. So this 3/6 is equivalent to half to this answer here. Now in some cases you might not be able to see half, maybe another answer has been provided. So in this case, and no in other questions, let's say for instance that this wasn't half, but really 4/8 were provided as an answer. And then you look at this question and you say, oh, 3/6, if I simplify this, and I get in half, but half is not here. Well, let's see if we can simplify any of the other answers, because we know 3/6 is the same as half when simplified. Now let's check all of these different answers to see if they're simplified. Now obviously we can't simplify 1/3 or 2/3 or 1/4, but if 4/8 was provided as an answer, if we were to put this as a fraction and simplify it, this is also a half. So this is saying that 3/6 and 4/8 is actually equivalent. They're the same. So you would answer this one, okay? So if you get a question like this, simplify the fraction that you're looking for to its simplest form, and then simplify all the other answers provided. And if you get an answer that is same as a simplified version, you know that's your answer. Sorry, there's a bit of a glitch with that question. I'm just going ahead and fixed it. Now, this question here, which is this fraction in simplest form, and the fraction is located here, usually is on the top. And this is kind of like the first question, but there's actually not as many steps. All you're doing is grabbing your calculator, you're putting the required fraction in 6/8, and getting it in its simplest form, which is 3/4. So in this case here, our answer is 3/4. Just 6/8 can be written as 3/4. There's no other way when we simplify it can be written. This is the simplest form because you can't simplify 3/4 into another form of a fraction. So 3/4 is the simplest form. The second last example, looking here, is this question here: which fraction of an hour is 5 minutes? So right now we know that when we look at a clock, and specifically an analog clock, it is split up into 12 parts because there are 12 hours within a day. And what this is focusing on is what is that red quantity amount as a fraction. Well, we know that if we split this into a fraction, there's always going to be 12 parts. And the amount that has been colored in from first to second is just one. There's only one chunk out of the 12 possible chunks that are colored in. So in this case, our answer is 1/12. If we had maybe that chunk, that chunk, that chunk, and that chunk colored in, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 12. All right, so if it looked like that, and 1, 2, 3, 4. If it had all of this in red, you'll go ahead and put that into your calculator as 4/12. But I know 4/12 can be simplified to 1/3 because it's 1/3 of the time. So you would circle 1/3 in that instance, but in this case, it's just 1/12. The last example, we'll be looking at having to drag the following fractions from smallest to largest. Now you've got to be careful whether it's either saying smallest to largest or largest to smallest. You can see here that all of the denominators are different. There's no consistency between them all. So a lot of the students would think, I'm just going to look at this one. This is number 1. That one will go first, and then number 3 will go next, and then maybe 4/5, then 4/6, and then 4/8, which isn't necessarily the case. Now this has already been ordered from smallest to largest, but how you would actually do this is using that SD button I was talking about before over here. Let's put the calculator here. Yeah, this SD button can help us out. So first we're going to put this into the form of a fraction, and we're going to press equals. Next we're going to press the SD button, and this will show us that the answer is 0.25 as a decimal. And we're actually going to go ahead and do that for all of the different types of questions. Now there is the long version or long way of being able to do this, but the fact that we can use a calculator within tests and within essential assessment, we're going to use to our advantage. So 4/8, which is the same as half, which is 0.5. 4/6, which is also the same as 2/3, so 4/6. Now this keeps going. I'm just going to round that to 2 decimal places, 0.67, and 4/5 I already know as 0.8. Now we have numbers here that we can arrange from smallest to largest, and specifically the decimal parts. Now you will get instances where you see 2 numbers after the decimal point and only 1 number after the decimal point. For this example, this example, and this example. If that's the case, just put a 0 next to it, because they do technically mean the same thing. But then now we've got numbers that we can relate to: 25, 30, 50, 67, and then 80. And it's much easier to arrange this if the decimal version of the fraction has been provided, because we are so used to arranging numbers from smallest to largest if it's been given as either a decimal or a whole number. So in this case, we know that 25 is the lowest and 80 is the largest, so that one will be the first fraction you drag, and then this one will be the last fraction that you drag. And there's a bit of a delay within my pen tool. And that concludes this video for the essential assessment skill. This will be the first skill that you will be attempting. You'll also notice that only one skill will be provided at a time. So you'll be watching this video and then doing the required skill accordingly, regardless of whether you have done well on your pretest or not. And we're going to work with this last topic within a linear fashion, so that way you guys are very comfortable with fractions regardless of what level you are up to. Till then, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.